Kimi is one of those movies where I'm afraid to say my opinion of the movie because the mass majority of other people have the opposite opinion of my own. Obviously, it's not that big of a deal. Everyone deserves to have their own opinion of everything if they give it a fair chance. And to be perfectly clear, I was very excited for this movie, and I'll get into why in a minute. But if someone liked this movie, I understand why, and I'm glad they like it. If they are interested in the movie, I do recommend it. I can see why people would like this movie, but based on what I think of it, is why I'm writing this review. With that said, what is Kimi about? Kimi is an HBO Max original, or as I call it, an HBO Max exclusive film. It's a thriller written by David Coap, who has his experience of directing and writing many great films, which are relevant to talk about since this film was directed by Steven Soderbergh, who is a great filmmaker, and I love his movies. I haven't seen all his movies, but I plan on seeing the ones I missed, but I had seen Ocean's 11, Logan's Lucky, and last year's HBO Max exclusive film, No Sudden Move, which I loved and was probably on my short list for best films of 2021. So now that he has a new movie out, regardless of what it's about, I was hyped because he is a great director of many other movies, and I was excited to see what he'd do next. This movie takes place during the pandemic, where in the film a brand new smart speaker device comes out called Kimi, like an Amazon Alexa, or other examples, but the CEO of the company that makes this device, Bradley Haisling, played by Derek DeGaudio, says the difference is how human operators are able to listen to anonymous users and fix issues the user personally has and help improve the Kimi so it can be more adjusted to a specific user, which I think is a pretty clever idea. In Seattle, one of the tech workers stuck at home named Angela Childs, played by Zoe Kravitz, has the job to do so. Listen to recordings of people using the Kimi without it revealing who is the user and help improve their experiences with the Kimi. But Angela is stuck trying to improve her own problems. But Angela suffers agoraphobia and is afraid to leave her home, and while she's worked around living at home, she still knows she's missing out or ignoring the importance of doing things outside, being with people again, but there's more to her agoraphobia than just the pandemic. But as she ignores the real world outside, inside, she ends up listening to a recording that might capture voice recordings of a crime going on, and the more she looks into it, the worse things get for her, and she might have to face her fear of going outside in order to figure out both what's going on and how to survive in general when it feels like for her, everyone is after her. I think this movie has a great premise. For one, it takes the person stuck at home and accidentally witnessing a crime scene better than some other movies that do this, since at the very least she doesn't creepily eavesdrop on other people. She has a good reason to accidentally stumble upon something none of her business. I also like in the movie the use of the colors with some blue and especially yellow to make the movie feel claustrophobic, and it does look pretty for most of the film. In fact, the movie starts off really solid, doing a good job establishing its main character, what the in-movie device impacts the story without just being a MacGuffin, as Angela isn't necessarily a good person since she's impulsive and is often rude to other people, but it's good why she's like this, and she is still likable enough for me to root for her compared to one of the worst movies I saw last year. Which was The Woman in the Window, my number 7 of top 10 worst films list of 2021, which, hey, I was kind of happy to see it got nominated for a Razzie, so I know I wasn't the only person who saw and hated. Which, you know, that movie is where Amy Adams' character was really hard to like, but when I learned why she has agoraphobia, it made me lose any chance to root for her. And here it works for the character for some of her choices and she makes in the movie. But there are many choices in film that just don't work. This is one of those movies where I can see what the filmmaker was going for, but for me, personally, it didn't work. Without spoiling too much, after Angela does leave her home to venture into the real world to uncover this conspiracy of what she heard but wasn't meant to hear, the camera is clearly just being used in handheld mode to follow the main character, and I presume the idea was to make the movie feel uneasy, like someone might be following her and she doesn't know it, but it was obviously not the case. To me, it looked sloppy, and they actually sped up her walking, which I don't know if it was actually that. I don't know. Is it my eyes? That's the problem. But it just looked weird, since she doesn't seem natural, and you could argue she's not supposed to be, but I don't mean the character. I mean the execution. There are so many sequences out of her part where the movie feels juvenile, and I don't know why. There's a scene where Angela is in a stressful situation, and instead of a first-person perspective on the situation to make it feel more tense, a dissolved look of her face over what would be that scene is instead there, and it looked really dumb, which I guess if you didn't see the scene, it's kind of hard to explain like that, but I feel like if you did see the scene, you would get what I mean, so that was a good enough description. In fact, main characters of the film make real dumb choices that if the characters weren't subbed properly to make me understand why they make certain choices, that would be smarter. It doesn't work. Like, Angela has a reason to not be okay with the police, but kidnappers trying to cover up her finding out more about the conspiracy, tried to kidnap her in public. And I don't mean in like an alley. They tried to kidnap her in broad daylight right next to a rally where everyone sees two people dressed in black drag a woman to a black van, which the people rallying help her out, and she runs away from the people in the crowd, where I think if she was surrounded by dozens of people, those people couldn't really kidnap her, in front of so many witnesses, without keeping the crimes committed incognito. So honestly, for all the reviews I read saying this was a tremendous performance of Zoe Kravitz, I gotta be honest, I didn't see that here. Not to say she's bad. She does do a lot of good, emotional, powerful scenes decently, but I never once felt like her performance stood out. Not to say she doesn't do a bad job. I want to make that clear. I just wasn't impressed, which I know, coming from me, means absolutely nothing. And look, if you really liked her performance, good for you. I didn't hate it, but I still have more problems with the movie. Like, especially by the end of the movie, the climax felt kind of underwhelming, where I wish they did something either more suspenseful or more entertaining, but the most I got out of the end was a slight giggle. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to chuckle at it or not. There are other problems this film has, such as some things that are pointless to the plot, like Angela needing a root canal, which ties into her being afraid to leave the house, but it can be taken out and it doesn't change a thing. In fact, during the whole climax of the movie, I was just thinking about how Angela did one thing she does later, but if she did it earlier, I don't know, I had my problems with the movie. And I don't hate it. It does the type of story well enough, and while I think the concept wasn't taken advantage of, the entertainment from it, and the fact it's less than 9 minutes long helps make it something I don't regret watching. I just wish it was better, since there are so many little things that hold it back for me to say I liked it. I don't have any interest in seeing this again, but if other people liked it, I can see why, from the acting to the cinematography, among other things. I just wish when I put the movie on, it had more working for it than against it. I give Kimi a 5.5 out of 10.